Have you ever wondered why, in your quietest moments, you feel the most powerful and the most alone? Let me ask you something. When was the last time you bit your tongue? Not out of fear, but out of a strange, simmering strength. When was the last time you let someone's insult, betrayal, or manipulation pass through you like a cold wind and simply said nothing? Maybe you're watching this because you're tired. Tired of being misunderstood. Tired of defending yourself. Tired of feeling like your words are weapons that always backfire. Or maybe, deep down, you're starting to realize that the world doesn't reward the loudest voice, but the one who can hold their silence when it matters most. This is not a video about being passive. This is about the kind of silence that terrifies people. The silence that makes them question themselves. The silence that is not emptiness, but a fortress today. I want to show you why your silence is the most dangerous weapon you possess, and why it's the power they fear most. We live in a world addicted to noise. Scroll through your feed, everyone is shouting, defending, explaining, justifying, reacting. It's single quotes S. A world where silence is seen as weakness. If you don't clap back, you're a coward. If you don't defend yourself, you must be guilty. If you don't explain, you must have something to hide. But what if I told you that this is a lie? What if I told you that the most dangerous person in the room is the one who doesn't need to speak? Nietzsche once wrote, "He who cannot put his thoughts on ice should not enter into the heat of dispute." What he meant was simple. If you can't master your own mind, you will always be a slave to the chaos around you. We are conditioned to react, to defend, to explain ourselves to people who have already made up their minds. But what if you stopped? What if you let the noise pass over you untouched? Let's talk about the first uncomfortable truth. Most people don't want the truth. They want a reaction. Think about the last time someone lied about you. Your first instinct was probably to defend yourself, to set the record straight, to prove your innocence. But here's the twist. The more you defend yourself, the guiltier you look. The more you explain, the more you seem to have something to hide. It's a psychological trap. The ancient Greeks called it apologia, the defense speech. But Plato warned that the truth doesn't need a defense. It simply is. When you stop defending yourself, you force the world to confront the possibility that you don't need to. That maybe, just maybe, the truth is on your side. Now, let's talk about betrayal. The knife in the back. The friend who turns into a stranger. The lover who walks away without a word. We are taught that closure comes from confrontation, from demanding answers, from making them see the pain they caused. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Betrayers have already justified their actions. They've rewritten the story in their heads. No amount of confrontation will bring you peace. Machiavelli wrote, "Men forget more easily the death of their father than the loss of their patrimony." People will forget your pain, but they will never forget the power you held when you walked away in silence. Your absence is the loudest statement you can make. It is the echo that haunts them long after you're gone. Let's talk about insults. The little jabs, the passive-aggressive comments. The people who poke at your insecurities, hoping you'll explode. Why do they do it? Because they want your reaction. They want to control your emotions. But what happens when you give them nothing? No anger, no defense, just indifference. Seneca, the great Stoic, said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor. The person who craves your reaction is the one who is truly powerless. Your indifference is your shield. It is the armor that no insult can pierce. Now, let's go deeper. Some people weaponize their own pain. They play the victim not to heal, but to control. They twist the narrative. They make you the villain in their story. They cry louder, hoping the world will side with them. And you scramble to defend yourself, to prove your innocence, to fix what you didn't break. But here's the twist. The more you defend, the more guilty you look. The more you explain, the more you feed their story. Bonhoeffer, the philosopher who stood against the Nazis, once said, "Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act." But sometimes, the most powerful act is to withdraw, to let the silence expose the truth. When you stop playing their game, you force them to face themselves. Let's talk about being taken for granted. You give, you show up, you sacrifice, and yet you become invisible. Why? Because people mistake your kindness for weakness, your presence for permanence. But what happens when you withdraw? When you stop showing up? When your absence becomes a question mark in their lives? Plato wrote about the allegory of the cave, how people only see the shadows, never the source of the light. Sometimes people need to lose you to see your value. Your absence is not a punishment, it is a lesson. Now, let's talk about provocation. There are people who live to push your buttons, to make you lose your cool, to drag you down to their level. Why? Because if they can control your emotions, they control you. But what if you refuse to play? What if you mastered your frame? Epictetus, the Stoic slave, taught that no one can harm you unless you allow them to disturb your mind. Your mind is your fortress, your calm is your weapon. When you refuse to be provoked, you become untouchable. And finally, let's talk about regret. The people who hurt you, who lied, betrayed, insulted, manipulated, or took you for granted. One day, they realize what they lost, they come back. Knocking on the door, they slammed shut. But here's the final twist. Your silence is your closure. Your refusal to reopen the door is your freedom. Nietzsche said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." You don't need to punish them. You don't need to explain. You simply move forward in silence. So why is silence so dangerous? Because it is the one thing they cannot control. It is the mirror that forces them to see themselves in a world addicted to noise. Your silence is rebellion. In a world obsessed with reaction, your restraint is power. Machiavelli warned that it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. But true power is not in being feared or loved. It is in being unshakable. Your silence is not emptiness. It is presence. It is self-mastery. It is the language of the strong. Here's the truth. No one wants to admit. You are not obligated to explain yourself to anyone who is committed to misunderstanding you. You are not responsible for fixing other people's stories. You are not required to defend your worth. The world will try to drag you into its chaos. It will demand your reaction. It will bait you with lies, betrayal, insults, manipulation, and regret. But you have a choice. You can choose silence. You can choose absence. You can choose to let your actions, not your words, define you. But here's the twist you didn't see coming. Silence is not just a weapon. it is also an act of compassion. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is to let people face the consequences of their actions, to give them the space to grow or to fall. Your silence is not just for you, it is for them. It is the space where truth is born. So I ask you, can you hold your silence when the world demands your noise? Can you walk away when your ego screams for revenge? Can you let your absence speak louder than your words? This is not easy. It is the hardest thing you will ever do. But it is also the most powerful, because in your silence, you reclaim your power. You become the master of your mind. You become the person they cannot control. So the next time you are lied about, betrayed, insulted, manipulated, or taken for granted, remember this. Your silence is not weakness. It is the most dangerous weapon you possess. It is the power they fear most. And in a world addicted to noise, the one who can hold their silence is the one who truly rules. What will your silence say about you?